Parevses. My name is Յովհաննէս Քըլëճտաղը. I've been one of the columnists of AGOS newspaper for last 15 years, and also I'm the editor of English version of AGOS website. Before starting my presentation, let me thank Organization of Istanbul Armenians for organizing this event, putting all this together. I think thanks to such events, such activities, the function and importance of AGOS will be understood and appreciated more. And as of today, AGOS itself refers to a history, considering that it was established 3 decades ago. This is a long history indeed by itself to talk about. And the main motivation behind the formation or the foundation of AGOS in late 1990s, let's say, was to struggle against prejudices and slander campaigns targeting Armenian community in Turkey. Such negative feelings against Armenians had been already deeply rooted in reference to history. So these prejudices and negative feelings, let's say, in other words, had some historical background. Based on this historical background, in 1990s especially, Armenians started to be associated with Kurdish party PKK and with its armed struggle, armed activities, which was or still is defined as terrorism by Turkish state. And based on this historical background, in 1990s, Armenian community and Armenians especially became a target in public opinion and official statements. So in this environment, AGOS was founded to falsify these claims and treat Turkish society with knowledge about Armenians, as the former knows very little about the latter. And that's why AGOS chose Turkish as its main language of publishing to reach larger society, to reach Turkish people and let them learn the truth, or let's say, let them learn other perspectives at least. So it can be certainly, I think, said that it has achieved this task brilliantly, as it has become a reference center for those who are willing to learn more about Armenians, Armenian community of Turkey, as well as Armenian history. However, the function and achievements of AGOS go well beyond this function of giving information about Armenians. In Turkish political environment, as you may know, which is very hard for all sorts of minorities, AGOS has become a platform which voices the marginalized groups such as other ethno-religious minorities, women, immigrants, workers, LGBTQ people, and publicize and defend their rights. So AGOS, in other words, is one of the prominent institutions which work for upholding minority and human rights in Turkey. So, in other words, its functions go well beyond the Armenian community. It's not, let's say, quote unquote, parochial functions, but it tries to cover whole Turkish society and all marginalized groups who are under pressure. Political pressure, social pressure. AGOS tries to stand by these groups too. Another domain to which AGOS contributes is the protection of tangible and intangible Armenian cultural heritage in Turkey. In this framework, it regularly publishes interviews, articles that transmit collective memory about Armenian traditions, social lives, culture, and history in their ancient homeland to coming generations. When I say coming generations, I mean both Armenian and Turkish, or let's say non-Armenian youth. So they also, I mean, AGOS also informs younger generations of larger society about Armenian culture, Armenian history in their, let's say, ancient homeland. Additionally, AGOS follows the situation of the remaining Armenian churches and other sorts of buildings in Anatolia and tries to promote their protection and restoration by drawing attention of public opinion to these buildings. So by its power, let's say, within the limit of its power, it tries to mobilize related officials or related civil society for the protection and restoration of this kind of tangible Armenian cultural heritage remaining in various locations of Turkey. Another, let's say, topic that AGOS is interested in is this. From the first day on, AGOS also works for the improvement of dialogue between Armenia and Turkey. And accordingly, opening Armenian-Turkish border has been always a priority for AGOS. And today, I think we can say that AGOS is the main source of information for Turkish people about what's going on in Armenia and or Armenian politics. In other words, AGOS, if not the main, is one of the main platform from which Turkish people, Turkish society, Turkish public opinion learns developments, recent developments, political and social developments in Armenia. And of course, normalization process, quote unquote, let's say, between Armenia and Turkey is one of the constant topics that AGOS dwells on, that AGOS is interested. Similarly, AGOS also works to familiarize Turkish society with Armenian diaspora, as Turkish people know very little about the history and identity or identities of Armenian diaspora. Dominant attitude in Turkish society vis-a-vis Armenian diaspora has been just demonizing it and showing it as the main source of all evil, etc. As you may know, it's a very frequent attitude in Turkey to compare especially recently, Armenia and Armenian diaspora, and saying that Armenian diaspora is the quote unquote evil side in this equation, and they try to divert Armenia from the quote unquote right path. To be brief, I can say that AGOS tries to break this approach, these prejudices, and show that in fact the overwhelming part of the today's or present Armenian diaspora originates from these lands, which is Turkey today. So indeed, these people, maybe third, fourth generation of diaspora, is not as alien as Turkish people think. So from this perspective, AGOS also tries to increase and improve the dialogue between Armenian diaspora and Turkish state and society. When we look at AGOS from the perspective of Armenian community, we may speak about some conflictual feelings. Because on the one hand, they were satisfied seeing that some people started to talk on behalf of them and defend their rights. But on the other hand, they were anxious because AGOS news and statements and the appearance of fronting in national media may have made Armenian community more visible and accordingly a target. As during the history of Turkish Republic, main survival strategy of Armenian community had been being invisible from, public space, so that they try to divert any danger and any risk from the community. In other words, they had preferred living in shadows. Agos changed this. In fact, the assassination of Hrant Dink can be seen as a sort of cost for being outspoken. Today, however, I can say that this feeling of apprehension because of Agos has been largely eliminated from Armenian community. At least this is my observation. So Agos today is one of the main actors in communal affairs, or let's say an important center, an important institution, which tries to follow and publicize communal, let's say, affairs, problems, and politics. Uh, in other words, Agos, along with Granting Foundation, is a main channel that publicized the problems of the Armenian community and its institutions, such as schools, community foundations, churches, etc. It tries to inform larger Turkish society about these problems and create a consciousness among Turkish society about, on Armenian community and its problems, so that try to create an appropriate environment in which larger society, or at least some segments of larger society, may contribute to defending the rights of Armenian community. It's another topic, but because it's very difficult to defend or to publicize the problems and rights of Armenian community without a contribution from larger society, from larger Turkish society. So, and Agos has an important function to familiarize other human rights organizations, civil society organizations, with the situation of Armenian community and its troubles. So, Agos is also a good source of community politics and activities, and it closely follows the discussions and conflicts among community members and its intra-communal relations. Uh, Let me finish with the general situation in Turkey today. As those of you who follow Turkish politics would know, Turkey has been experiencing a democratic backslide for, let's say, longer than a decade, and becoming an authoritarian regime more and more. In this atmosphere, we cannot say that there is a campaign that especially and exclusively targets others. However, there is a tense and risky conditions for opposition as a whole, in the whole country, in other words. The current regime, targets the segments of opposition which it considers more dangerous for its well-being. As of today, Agos is not so dangerous for their power in their eyes, according to their assessment. It is not a target that has priority in these days. But we shouldn't forget that Agos has already made the biggest sacrifice by the assassination of Hrant Dink. And I think we as following generations has this responsibility to make Agos survive and continue to function as an important actor both in Armenian community and also in larger Turkish society, as well as in relations between Armenia, Turkey, and diaspora. So let me finish again once again to thank you for your contribution for the continuation of this legacy, let's say. Thank you all for your listening and your patience. Unak Parov.